Good morning, another day, another life, another here, weirdo thingy. Yeah, how are we today? How is your day going? How is everything going? What's new for you? It's Friday, right? Weekend is approaching. It's a time where most of us find rest, most time where people spend time with their loved ones, take trips, and taking a trip tomorrow is for sure on my agenda. We are leaving to LA tomorrow and we are super stoked and super excited. We go for 8 days, which means that my lives will be not home anymore. They will be in California, and I'm curious when I'm doing my life tomorrow, because tomorrow we have to wake up really early. I think it's 3 a.m. the latest. I have to walk my dogs, because traveling with dogs, our flight is at 7 a.m. That's not super early, but if you have dogs, you can't just come, wake up, take your bag and leave to the airport. There's a lot of logistics that's happening too. We have 2 small dogs and we have, to walk them for a while to make them really tired, to make sure that they went to the bathroom properly, and then, at the airport, walking them outside again before we go inside the airport itself and doing the check-in and security check. Yeah, so there's a lot of things going on, and then at the airport we walk them inside a lot. Boston Airport is really huge as well, so there's a lot of walking areas, and then there are a lot of dog bathrooms too, so this is really a fun time for us to spend time with our dogs this way, instead of just sitting somewhere and waiting for the flight to let us board. Nabu, I'm on a live. Of course, and I'm going live, they have to bark. Yeah, so that's going on in my world, and today I thought I'd drop us into our center, into our body. And the way how I usually do that is by recognizing where I am in my cycle, because let's face it, we all have an inner critic. We have an inner critic. It's usually an accumulation of different voices. It can be of one of your parents. It can be both parents. It can be a voice of a teacher, even a grandparent, a peer, whoever, right, was really formative in our early years. And this is the inner critic that we adapt, right? We're very early on in childhood. That's the way how we protect ourselves, right, from doing something that's disconnecting us to our loved ones. And the inner critic, there are degrees to how strong an inner critic can be. And mine was very potent, but not in the best way. Potent in a way of very present in my life. And I always, had a very strong inner critic, especially when I got out of school, and when I, really stepped into adulthood. That was something that made my life quite challenging. It brought me somewhere for sure, but it also had this way of leading my life that was very strict, very rigid, very controlled. I spoke about that on the other day, where I said, if you're very controlling about your life and other people's lives, it's this dysfunction of your masculine, because control gives you power. And the inner critic wants to take control over. He wants to make sure that everything is running smoothly. And when you have a misshape, when you do something, when you make a mistake, or when something just didn't go the way, when you received a result that you didn't anticipate and it wasn't the desired result, the inner critic unleashes itself. And a few years ago, in a self-development course, we talked about the inner critic. So we worked on the inner critic, and it was the first time I got really in touch with it. And we were under hypnosis, and we did exercises, and then my peer, we did a peer exercise, asked me, how my inner critic looks like, who he or she is, if it's an it, whatever. And I closed my eyes and I saw a white man dressed totally in black with a hat and a huge whip on the right side of my shoulder and whipping me. That's how I saw my inner critic when I really tuned into what that looks like. And my peer was like so shocked. I will never forget that moment when I described that. And then she was like, afterwards, like, oh my gosh, this is really hard to live this way. You know, I mean, yes. I mean, of course. I mean, I was surprised too that that's how I saw it. And that's how I knew that I want to make a drastic change, because I already sense that compassion and the grace towards my own self, and I have been through a lot, and you have been through a lot, is the only way to liberation, to a life that is lush, that is exciting, that is like peaceful, that is all the things, right? And so I worked on my inner critic, and there's so many ways how to tackle it. And of course, you know, like people talk about self-love and compassion, but if you have a very strong inner critic, I mean, it doesn't really land. It's just like, yeah, whatever. So the inner critic is not something that goes away. It will not go away ever. But you can like decrease the volume of its presence. So my inner critic is really, really small. And it's not as present at all anymore. Sometimes I don't even notice it. And if I make a mistake, if I slip, if something happens, I immediately get aware of it and I immediately take over before my inner critic can jump in and say like, oh no, what did you do here? This is total mess. Oh, you're so stupid, you know? This is about all the thoughts that I had, right? Like, oh, you're stupid. You're like, I mean, look at you, you know, like there was really like this harsh voice, and now it's like so subtle, I don't even hear it anymore. And I never believed that this was actually possible. I never really believed that I could tune it out in a way that it's not even noticeable anymore. And if it's there, I am compassionate towards my own inner critic. I'm not fighting it. I'm not resisting it. The biggest mistakes people and my clients do in the beginning before we start working, and what actually brought them then actually to coaching or to seeking support, is they are fighting their inner critic. They cognitively know that having an inner critic is not a good thing if you wanna level up in life, because it's the one that keeps you small. It's the one who tells you, no, don't do it. You know, either you're too stupid or something will happen. You will embarrass yourself, right? And so if you know, cognitively we know, but then it's like we are resisting and fighting our inner critic, and you will never win this fight. It's a fight that it's already lost as soon as you started. And the inner critic, the only way how to really dissolve it in a way that it's not so potent anymore, it doesn't have such an effect on you and on your life, and not such a grip on you anymore, is by being compassionate. So for me, you know, I felt into it. I was like, it was there, you know, it's like shouting at me or labeling me with really bad words, you know. I was like, okay, I get it. I see you. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. Because in the end of the day, your inner critic just tries to prevent hurt. It's guarding your heart. It's guarding your whole being. And very often when you catch yourself, you know, you're with somebody else and something happens and you're just like, I'm so stupid, you know, oh my God, what did I do, you know? When we even like tell this out loud, it's also just to make sure that you are the first saying this, that you're silly and stupid, because it hurts us less. That was just a bird, so cute. It hurts us less if you say it versus somebody else. So if you work on something and you made a mistake and it affects somebody else too, If you say, oh, I'm so stupid, oh my god, you know, I should do better, oh my god, I mean, it's like silly me, you know, it hurts you less than somebody else says, stupid you are really not worthy doing this. That's why we say it out loud. And this was the very, very, very first ways how I caught it. Whenever I said like, oh, I'm so silly, because I learned it from my mom. My mom used to say this all the time, you know. She said, oh my god, I'm so stupid. Whenever she made something, when something happened, you know, when something didn't go the way. And I adopted that. I wasn't even thinking. And then my whole environment was like this. And rarely it happens that I say that to like, oh my god, silly me, really. But then I say like 5 or 10 loving words to myself. Oh, you're abundant, you are gracious, you are loving, you are amazing, you are something. Like, you know, I just shower myself in love. And I really mean it. You know, I really feel it in my body. And again, the inner critic doesn't like you to be resisting it. And the more compassionate you are towards this inner critic, the more it loses its power, because it doesn't want the power anymore. It starts to trust you. And this might be a process that takes time. It may take a lot of practice depending on, you know, how strong your inner critic is. But it's a burden your inner critic has. It's a part of you that actually doesn't want to run that show. So I meet my resistance, my inner critic, with a lot of love. It's like, yeah, I get it. Thank you for being here. I listen to what my inner critic is saying, you know, and it's like, I got it. But I distance myself. I not allow my critic to blend in with my self energy. I keep the distance, but in a loving way. And whenever you want to change something in your way, doing it with love, with pure presence to what's unfolding in your body, whatever part is popping up, and maybe shouting, or maybe being scared, maybe even cry, maybe intimidated, you show up and say, I've got you. And whatever you feel, whatever that inner critic or that part brings up is totally okay. There's so much shaming around feeling a certain way. Especially women, we are all like, from early on, I have been always told, don't be too emotional. That's something that is like, I heard every day. Because I'm a very like very vivid person. I'm very like emotional. I cry very easily. I'm very like sensing other people's energy, right? I'm very sensitive to energies and to what's going on between people and between my parents, for example. And that did something with me. But the louder I was, or the more I wanted to get that out, the more, of course, there was this backlash coming from my caregivers. But in the end of the day, it doesn't matter what happened to you in childhood, because you now as an adult can take the full responsibility to give to yourself the very things that you didn't get from your parents, from your grandparents, from whoever you wanted something. We have this black hole in our heart that we try so hard to stuff, to fill up, and we try to seek it externally, like, you know, the validation for your good work in your job, in your business, the client validation, the feedback, the testimonials from our loved ones, from the colleagues. We try to get it as much as possible, and that determines so much of our actions. And most of those actions are so inauthentic. It's not even what we want to do. And even if we will get, like, externally the things that we think we need, it's an empty energy. It does feel good for a second, but how long does a good praise last? Not long, because your heart is still, like, you know, it's still empty. There's still this black hole inside. And the inner critic, you know, hates it. It's scared of it. It doesn't like to hurt, because obviously there are a lot of emotional charges within this. The more we try to feel it and try to get it from the outside, the more we are hurt, because we don't get from others what we have to give to ourselves. And I have done everything in my whole life to feel my heart externally, and it brought a lot of misery, and my inner critic was even louder. So, and also what is super, super helpful as a last tip here, when it comes to, you know, smoothen out your inner critic, is to know as a woman in which cycle I am, in which, you know, phase I am in my menstruation. For example, I am now going from luteal into my reflective phase, my period. It's about to happen. And I had a very snappy energy the past 2 days. Everyone annoyed me very easily. I was very impatient. Like, I just not like having the bandwidth to deal with a lot of things. And I could notice, you know, like, there was a lot of noise in my head. And when I tuned into this noise for a moment, it was like a lot of, my inner critic was talking. I had judgments, like, of myself, like, should you be this way? Why are you so snappy? You know, oh, don't write this email like this. You know, like, I had like a lot of like doubts and like question marks, a lot of mental noise. And then I was like, wait a second, this is all okay. You know, this is all okay. Even my snappy energy. And every month I feel like it happens to me. And then I wonder, like, what is wrong with me? You know, I don't use the word wrong anymore, but I ask myself, like, what's going on? And then, of course, I am entering from these two most challenging phases of the women's cycle. It's your luteal phase, your very creative phase. It's a beautiful phase, but it's a very challenging one. Your energy is decreasing. You don't have the bandwidth anymore to tackle what you tackled the other two phases, right? Your productivity isn't there anymore. Like, the 10 million things that you usually juggle with more ease are quite a burden. The children get on your nerve, your partner, oh my God, you know. Then if you catch yourself in that, just know that this is okay, you know, that these are the, you know, things that are happening, that, okay, I'm not as productive anymore, I cannot do as many things anymore. And stopping the things around what you think that you have to do. And then I go into my menstruation, and I just, you know that everything is good. Everything is like happening for a good reason. And even having this impatient energy, or not, like, as I said, the bandwidth to deal with things, totally fine. Because once I have the cognition where I'm in my cycle, I change my activities. I totally change it. I stop communicating with a lot of people. I don't have hard conversation in this phase. So I really stop to do these things that are not the best in that phase. And that's definitely not having any conversations that might be negotiations, or like, I don't do sales calls or anything. I don't like show up online and offering things unless I feel called to do it. And my inner critic is totally fine once I make that, if I create that awareness. It's like, okay, this is what's happening, because my inner critic loves making meaning out of something. And then it goes steps back. It's like, oh, okay. And it trusts me. It knows that I know my cycle. It knows what are the activities that I can do really well, and what are the activities that I don't want to do, or shouldn't do in the sense of, you know, be mindful when you do it. And yeah, that's my life today. I have to jump on a call right now, but I wanted to talk about the inner critic because it was a topic that I discussed with my client the other day, and it really brought so much more relief and peace within herself. And I thought I'd share that with you. I didn't see who tuned in today. Unfortunately, Facebook doesn't show me whoever tuned in today. I love you. Thank you so much for being here, and talk to you tomorrow while traveling, and I'll give a lot of travel updates. So talk soon, my love. Bye.